Alright guys, so for this module we're gonna be making a Greek style vase. Here I have like a couple examples, and what I think I'm gonna be making is I'm gonna be making an amphora style. There are different amphoras, like amphora styles. Here's like a couple of them, so I'm gonna be making something similar to one of these. So I'm gonna start by making a foot. Later I'll be making the body, the neck, the lip, and then the handles. So that's gonna be my reference image. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with my project. All right, so first rule is we're gonna be making the base. So I got here a chunk of clay, of wedge clay. I'm gonna cut off just a bit to make my base. And I don't need a lot because it's just the base of my pot. So I'm gonna make a slab out of this. So you could either do it with the throwing method where you toss the clay onto the surface to flatten it out, or if you have a rolling pin handy, use that. So that's what I'm gonna be using. So just with this, I'm gonna be rolling it, and in order to control the thickness, I'm gonna just get two pencils and put them off to the side, and that's gonna control like the thickness of my base. That way it's not too thick and not too thin, just by having those pencils. That's gonna give you probably about 1/4 of an inch in thickness, which should be just about right. See, so now the rolling pin is not gonna go thinner than that. All right, so there's my base. Now I gotta cut a circle out of that. So look around, see what you find that's circular to use, for your base. You could use maybe a cup, a bowl. If you have a compass, use that. I'm gonna use this little container, just kind of put it on my clay, and then just draw out a circle for my base. There's my circle, so now I'm gonna cut it out. All right, there you go. This clay's still good, so I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use this clay to start out my coil. So there's my base. I'm gonna again first make a foot out of this. So I'm gonna, the chunk of clay I had, I'm gonna make a coil out of that now. So I have stretched it out. And now I'm just gonna place it on the table, the surface, and start rolling it. Make sure you run your hand throughout the whole coil. Make sure the whole thing is pretty even. Okay, so there's a coil. If it becomes too large to manage, feel free to cut it and just, do like little coils at a time. All right, so there's my coil. Here's my base. I'm gonna put the coil on top of the base and just press it down to start making my base on my foot. I'm gonna add another piece just to kind of like have it be 2 coils high. before I blend this, I'm gonna first arrange my coils, make sure they look right and circular. And then now with the wood tool, I'm gonna blend them together. Blending down into the base. And from the outside, I'm gonna blend up. To use a wood tool, you could also use a rib to blend. Remember to keep your hands moist and the tools a little bit moist too. It just helps with the blending process. Okay, so that's the starting point of my base. So this is gonna be my foot, which means it's gonna be narrow, and then from here I'm gonna start to build up. I'm gonna use my paddle just to paddle the shape a bit. Don't have a paddle, you could also just shape it by hand. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sort of like this, you know, go inwards a bit, kind of like a bit of a triangle. I don't want it to just kind of like go straight up, and I'm just slowly molding it with my hands. And the paddle is really useful for this process. Okay, so there's like the start of my base. From here now, when I add my coils, I'm gonna start to build them and put them out so that this starts to go outwards. So here's my coil. I'm gonna place it slightly outwards, and from here just I need to make more coils, so I grabbed the chunk of clay I had. Make sure you keep it covered as well so it doesn't dry. Or like what I like to do is I'll grab the spray bottle and I'll spray that. I'll spray that clay like every now and then so it doesn't dry on me. Make another coil. Now at the moment I don't have to score and slip every coil I make because these are soft. But the next day when I want to come back and continue working on this, I would score and slip that first coil. Okay, so here I'm just gonna go about 3 coils high. Add a little more, just so that my 3 coils are even. So here you could kind of see the shape. Again, this is my foot, goes inwards a bit, and then now for the belly, it starts to go out. So before I blend, I'm gonna arrange my coils. Make sure this is looking pretty circular. And then blend with the wood tool. I like to start blending the outside first, or the inside, I mean, the inside first. As I blend, I also like to place some pressure on the outside. That way this doesn't get pretty open and wide. I'm trying to control the width of my pot. Things are really well blended from the inside. You know, since this is still kind of manageable, it could also, you know, if you find it difficult to sort of blend like this, you could just flip it over and blend this way. Okay, so there you could kind of see now, sort of like the start of my pot. There's my foot, and then it's gonna be my belly. You know, I'm not too worried right now about it looking really clean. You know, just want it to be, make sure it's structurally sound. I might clean up just slightly, but not too much yet. You're making about a 6 to 8 inch tall pot. You don't have to go that big. You could go as big as you want, as long as you're comfortable with dealing with the size, but you know, 6 to 8 inches tall minimum. As far as the width, you know, might be like maybe 4 to 5 inches wide. Okay, so here again, there's the start. So I'm gonna go ahead and add another coil. Another chunk. Stretch it out by hand first. Keep your hand flat and just roll. There's my coil. And continue to put it just slightly outward so that this keeps on sort of like expanding out. I'm gonna have 2 coils high. Okay, so there's 2 coils. And before I blend, I'm gonna make sure they're arranged and it looks circular. Once it does, then I could blend. Starting with the inside. Putting pressure on the outside as I blend. All right, there's that. Flip it over and do the outside part. Okay. All right, so there's that. Now, before I kind of continue add more coils, I'm just gonna work on refining my form. Refining what I have so far, because I do want this to kind of like be looking clean as I build it. So use a combination of your scrapers, your ribs, to scrape and smooth out your pot, the base, your starting base. Take your time. Also kind of like pinch the shape out. I don't think I want it to go further out anymore. So now as I add coils, I'm just gonna sort of add them directly on top so that this starts to get some height. So yeah, so for kind of like the rest of the time, I'm just gonna work on refining my form, cleaning it up, before I add more coils for this. So I'll just be doing that, and then come back to continue building more on my pot. Okay, so I went ahead and I added 2 more coils to what I had started, and then now using the steel scraper I could scrape off and give my pot some shape. Just using the scraper, you can sort of fold it, and with it just like wrap around the form and shape it. So here you can see how this is starting to take shape. There's again my foot, there's my belly. Now there comes a point where you actually have to wait, and you can't really add any more coils to this. Technically I could, but there comes a point where this is soft, this is soft clay. If I keep adding coils on top of this, kind of like all the weight from the top might make the bottom part collapse. So you need to wait for it to dry up a bit before you could start adding more coils. So in the meantime, you just work on refining the form as it stiffens. You could speed up the process if you have a hair dryer. You could use that hair dryer to blow dry it and make it get more leather hard. Once the clay feels a little bit more leather hard, then you could keep on adding more coils. If you don't have a hair dryer, then you just have to kind of naturally let it sit out and dry out a bit. If you were to naturally let it sit out, I would just suggest maybe leave it out just like in your working station for about an hour or two, or just work on refining the form, and then once you're done with it, just throw a plastic trash bag over it lightly, and then when you come back the next day, it might feel a little bit drier. Now that's gonna depend on how hot or cool your home is, like what the weather is like. That's gonna determine how fast or slow your project will dry out. But here again, you can see that I could just, in the meantime, just take my time, refine the form, because I can't add any more clay to it. And then I'll just naturally let it sit out. And again, here's like, you could see what it's gonna look like. Eventually I'm gonna add more clay at the top and start to close it in to make my neck for my amphora. So there it is. Again, take your time on this. Be patient with the clay. Thickness, you know, this is probably about almost half an inch in thickness. That's how thick I'm making my coils. And I'm not pinching them at all to make them thinner. I'm keeping them pretty much the way they are as I roll them out. So because I want this to be pretty sturdy, you know. But yeah, don't make your coils also too thick, because then you'll be making a really heavy pot. So yeah, I'm just gonna come back next time when this is more stiff, and then I'll keep on building on top of this. I'll probably, next time when it's a little bit drier, I'll probably be able to almost finish up the form, because I'm probably gonna get maybe that much height overall. So you'll see. All right, go for it. Let me know if you have any questions.